Um, so good morning and afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our session today. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedules to join us. I'm Jamie Pregnell, Senior Product Manager from Third Bridge, and I'm delighted to kick off the third in our series of webinars focused on how we're partnering with the best-in-class AI solutions to fundamentally transform how investors leverage expert research. Today, joining me is Mats, who's Principal Architect AI Machine Learning for Financial Services at Snowflake. For the next 25 minutes, we'll be focused on our partnership with Snowflake, and we're going to cover a number of different agenda items with some time at the end to talk about the questions and answers that people might have throughout the session. So we'll focus on the main pain point that this partnership aims to solve. We'll look at our joint value proposition that we formed together. And then what Mats is going to do is walk us through a live demo of the Snowflake platform, but specifically on this particular use case. And then at the end, we'll run a short focus question and answer session just to wrap things up. If we run out of time to answer all the questions, we'll endeavour to answer them after the session. So please do post your questions in the chat, and they'll be there ready for us to address later on. So, Matt, great to have you here today with us. I guess maybe the best part is just to start with an intro of yourself, just your role at Snowflake, and perhaps touch on, how the partnership formed.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jamie. And it's an absolute pleasure to be part of this. So I'm Mats Stellvall, Principal Architect for AI/ML Financial Services in EMEA for Snowflake. So my role is basically to advise and recommend customers and partners how they can use Snowflake's AI and ML capability in the best way possible around this. And I'm very excited about the partnership we have with Third Bridge because that enables us in the long term to give our customers access to additional interesting data. As we all know, we are in a very data-driven business, and especially around investment management and these type of things. So it's a very exciting things that is going to happen with this.
Unmute myself. Thanks, Matt. I was just saying maybe we could start with the central challenge that you sort of hinted at there. So we've got this fragmented data landscape, and we're increasingly seeing a lot of clients talking about that. That's causing friction. So we've gone beyond that point of having a lack of data, and it's more of that architectural friction, I suppose, that slows a lot of the investment teams down now. As you can see here, into this kind of main quote that we've got on screen, I think the issue isn't necessarily that data being unavailable. It's kind of data getting stuck in silos. It's hindered by slow queries, and it's restricted by that rigid legacy infrastructure. We know this creates massive friction, and I've seen it across many teams that I've worked in the past. It prevents some investment teams from unifying that sort of diverse real-time data sets, including obviously our expert insights. And ultimately, it bottlenecks that actionable investment research at scale. So that organizational data friction is the problem our partnership with Snowflake is built to solve. I think if I go to the next slide, that combination of Third Bridge's deep proprietary expert insights and Snowflake's AI data cloud, obviously that gives us that transformational shift of how people want to kind of consume expert network data. It gives us new opportunities to obviously search and retrieve relevant insights that they might have in their thesis, etc. So Third Bridge provides that unique high quality content that can provide a client's investment thesis. Snowflake empowers our joint customers to achieve their full potential through that data and AI layer, enabling investors to quickly validate their assumptions and uncover those hidden risks and gain that critical edge through faster and data-driven decision making. maybe this is the point where I hand over to you, Mats, if you want to kind of give us a walkthrough of the Snowflake platform and how this kind of translates in reality.
Absolutely, I'm happy to do that. So let me just see if I can share my screen, and then we can go through some of the parts of what Snowflake is help customer with today. And I'm basically I'm going to just have a couple of small slides, and then I'm going to head directly into actually a demonstration to show how this can look like from an end user's point of view. So we've been talking about how we can use data as part of our investment process, and of course how we can utilize it in a good way. Since this is recorded and online, I do need to show you the safe harbor and disclaimers, but don't worry, we will not ask you any questions about the specifics, so you don't need to memorize this for you. So a challenge is, and as Jamie was into, there's no we have access to a lot of data today, but the challenge is how we can make that data consumable and how we can use it in a manner that actually gives us insight. So they can be everything that stops us to that is that the data is in silos, we don't have the resources, or there could be a very slow processing engine to create and monitoring these algorithms and so on. And obviously, with AI, we have a new possibilities how we can enrich and use this data, everything from how we can process and transform the unstructured data or multimodal data. And of course, with the use of Snowflake and the use of the marketplace and the way we can share data, a lot of this is not necessarily by using providers like Third Bridge in order to get access to this unstructured data in a much more consumable format, will minimize the need for us to process it. But we might have other types of data internally that can give us. And of course, AI give us also the possibility to create workflows with agentic AI, or also to use agents to talk with my investment data to generate different types of portfolio insights. So let me show you how this can look like. So what I'm going to show you today is how we could look for an end users. I might be a research analyst, I might be a portfolio manager, and I'm interested to understand a little bit around investments that I'm about to do. So what I want to do is to start off by maybe looking into what is the latest research saying about AI and cloud computing around technology companies. Maybe I want to look into if there's some company we need to investment or should investment due to this. This is a very simple question, but if you think of it, what it is needed for you to do this manually, that would be meaning to you need to figure out and find your research data, you need to read it through, you need to summarize it, and you need to start looking for all these different parts. What the agents give us a possibility, and what I'm using here is something called Snowflake Intelligence, which is a lightweight interface, and it is using something we call Snowflake Cortex agents. And the agent has a number of tools it can use to access data that exists within Snowflake. This can be data that we have been sourcing through the marketplace. So in this case, it might be research data that we have, and it can be our internal data. And what you can see is the simple question that I'm asking give my agent just in a couple of seconds to synthesize an answer where it has actually pulled data from my unstructured data, so research data that I have, and it synthesizes an answer based on that. And the nice thing about this is it also gives me the citation. So when it writes something that is based on my unstructured data, and this case, it's my broker research, it gives me also reference to say, this is from where I picked this information up. So this gives me a way of verifying that now the model is not, hallucinating around the data that it or the answer it's getting me. It's actually using data that I can provide it based on what I have access to. So we can see it gives me some nice answers. What is the core growth driver? What is the different investment themes it finds? And I'm interested to dig into this a little bit more. So I want to look at what is the companies that has the strongest themes. and have a more detailed analysis of their recent performance and strategic position. Now, this is actually asking it to start looking into more detail. So now suddenly it's not only looking at my unstructured data, which was my research report, is actually also looking at my structured data where I have financial information. So in this case, I have access to SEC filings data, which is also data that I can get from the marketplace, meaning I don't need to source it and load it myself. It's available directly for me. And we can see that my agent is finding some data. It's giving me some information about the planning, and it has picked NVIDIA that might be a more interesting company for me that I can use in order to look into further to do some investment. It pulls up some of the revenue data. I can see it. It's got it from quarterly results and some other data. It gives me a good view of how I can use this, how I can continue work with it, and I can use this in order to drill down further into data. So maybe I want to compare now what is NVIDIA's AI strategy compared with other technology companies that we were mentioned earlier. So having the possibility to ask these different questions and having an agent doing the vast majority of the heavy lifting for me is a very good advantage for me. And this is done in the context of my user. So I can utilize the strong security and governance that Snowflake provides, meaning is the agent cannot access any data that I don't have access to. So if I don't have access to, for example, NVIDIA's data, well, the agent will certainly tell me after a while that I cannot find any data. That might mean you don't have access to it or the data doesn't really exist. So this gives me a way of working with the data and focus more on the analysis and getting the insights instead of using a lot of time to try to gather the data that exists there. And the beauty of the marketplace and the way how Snowflake works with data providers like Third Bridge is I can easily add additional data sets that I can combine with my internal data without having to build these complex data pipelines and all other things I need in order to get this working. It is basically just a number of clicks that can give me access to this type of data, which I then can combine into an agent that I can add to my end users, and they can start asking questions about this data pretty straightforward. So you can see I can continue starting with a very general question and work my way down and getting the real interesting results where I still have the security in the sense of the data I'm looking at is actually data that is sourced from providers that I trust and so on. So this is a very simple example of how you can use the Snowflake functionality. And of course, what is behind this? Now, maybe not all data that I provide comes from the marketplace. We might have some internal data. Maybe we do our own research. Maybe I was also interested in combining this with documentation of the investment theory we have with other companies, or maybe meeting notes that we have internally. And Snowflake provides us with a lot of functionality we can use, everything from being able to transcribe voice files. So maybe I have a research call I did, or I had a call with some other people where we can transcribe it. We can then figure out what is the sentiment of it, what is it about, but we can also extract data from unstructured data like documents or images that we then can combine and then use it with different tools in Snowflake. So text to SQL, which is Cortex Analyst, so I can ask questions that generates a SQL, and Cortex Search that gives me the possibility to search for unstructured data in an easy way, and then make it available through what we call Cortex agents. And on top of that, I can use something like Snowflake Intelligence or other types of interfaces like Microsoft Teams or Slack or whatever other client might be interesting to use with that. Now, of course, Snowflake contains of much more functionality, which I haven't touched on this, but this is if we look at from the AI side, what we can do pretty easily without you having to set up additional infrastructure, building complex pipelines with code and so on and so forth. So with that, I just want to head over back to you, Jamie, again, to continue to talk on the topics we have.
Lovely. Thanks, Matt. Um, yeah, really helpful. And I've had a play with Cortex AI, so I've seen the power of it. And I think it's particularly important to stress the power around the unstructured data sets. So you touched on images, PDFs. I think it can even translate audio as well. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think obviously that in conjunction with Third Bridge proprietary research transcripts is going to be really powerful for people's workflows. And I think that's what we're most excited about at Third Bridge. I was curious. Well, I don't see any questions coming through just yet, but I'm sure people will send them in due course. While I wait for some to come through, I did have a couple myself.
Yes.
One of the things you touched on about is that kind of unified data cloud. And for a lot of companies that are thinking about these types of platforms, like Snowflake, um, how do they overcome that daunting nature of moving all their data into a data warehouse like Snowflake, which they can then search and use some of these cool tools?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I think it's down to a couple of things. Of course, it's all around the security and the governance that we have built in the in our platform that makes sure that the data are secured and protected and are not shared and accessible for someone else outside their own account, which is an important part. But also, what I have seen, and especially on the buy side, is the possibility to be able to get data direct through sharing and the marketplace is actually a big driver to overcome this fear because the addition you get is so much more than what you had today. That meaning that they can get access from data from you without having to go to an SFTP or calling an API. It's available for them directly in their account. As soon as you update it, there's new research transcripts available, it pops up and they can query it directly. So that is actually a big driver of overcoming that fear. But down to the earth, it's also about how the security and the governance is set up and how we can encrypt it. We are encrypting the data, making it secured in different types of ways. So I would say that is the two things that makes organizations to go over to start using Snowflake as their data platform.
Yep. Yeah, and I can certainly testify that for us when we integrated with Snowflake, it was fairly easy, and we know the client experience is a lot more seamless now to make our data available. On that question of quality, when people are obviously trying to accelerate their research insights, what other mechanisms you touched on governance slightly, but what other mechanisms can be in place just to almost just to help people trust the sources of data coming through, but also like the auditability, the logging, the trustworthiness, those aspects.
Yeah, and th those are a very important part of this because if we cannot trust what comes out of the AI and then we cannot observe what it's doing, it's going to be hard for us to actually take decisions on it. And as you saw, there's some parts that is built in the way how it produces answer by providing citations, so I can see from exactly where it comes from. And there's also a possibility, which I didn't show, but I can also give feedback on the answers directly to say this was helpful or this was not helpful due to that. And on top of that, we do enable there's monitoring. So you as a Snowflake user, you can get that you get access to the logs of the agent, so you can see how it was called, how it was used, what different steps did it take. And then, of course, we also have the possibility to set up observability on top of this. So you can measure the accuracy by if you provide, for example, your own ground truths to say this question should generate this behavior, and we can verify that it's close by. And you also have the possibility to work with evaluations that using, for example, LLM as judges in order to verify how relevant and accurate the answer is. So all that is built in the platform to help you to build trust around the things you implement.
And there's a question just I don't know if you have a sort of a main contact that if someone was reaching out to Snowflake, I mean we can always address this question afterwards. We can share an
Yeah.
email address, but
We have a very nice, very easy way through the Snowflake home page. There's a section there for example, if you are interested in partnership, where you can add your information, and we will reach out to you directly in order to do that.
Um, on the side of the agents, so when you move from the Cortex AI to the agent analysts and just agents more broadly, I'm guessing you can train those agents with different prompts and also perform different workflow tasks. So if we were thinking about sort of a traditional investment researcher that might have a thesis and might want to assemble a number of different data sources, including Third Bridge, is that the case?
Yes. So the agents are the way you build agents in Snowflake is actually it's a configuration exercise. So for each and every agent, you of course give it a description and a name, and then you tell it, you set up which tools it can use. And as you mentioned, Cortex Analyst is one tool that allows you to retrieve your structured data, and then there's something called Cortex Search that gives you the possibility to retrieve your unstructured data. And then you can add things like custom tools that basically allows you to define different types of tools by Python code that can do things like search on the web for additional information, or maybe generate a PDF from the answer, because it might be that you have an agent where you want to have the possibility to maybe generate an investment document that we're going to take up for our board to ask for permissions to do investments, so we can have it to that, and we can then control the way how the agent behaves by giving it different types of instructions. So one instruction is, of course, how it should respond. So what is the tone it should use? How should it present the data? And then the other part of it, we can tell it how to orchestrate between the tools. So when we are asking for something, it might be, uh, I wanted to do an investment document, and we tell it that these are the steps you need to go through in order to provide this type of documentation for us. So we have all the possibilities to do that. And the good thing with this is also agents, access to agents is controlled by role-based access control. So we can also make sure that I have only access to the agents that I should have access to in that sense as well.
Lovely. I had a question just about how Snowflake, how you differentiate yourself from your peers. So I won't say the name of one of your peers, but it does begin with a D. But yeah, just wondering how you stand yourself apart from them.
Yeah, so our focus is, and by no means I'm not an expert in other solutions. I focus on Snowflake, but our mantra is to make things easy. We talk about internally the easy button, so to take away the complexity from the users in the way how to set up and manage things, to make it easy to um, um, use agents, to create agents, to use different language models from different providers like OpenAI and Anthropics and Meta and so on and so forth, without forcing the users to go through a lot of configurations and settings and tweaking and these type of things. So that I would say is the biggest difference, at least compared to other tools that I've been using through my life as in this space, and that has been going on for a quite while now. So I think easy to use and still being powerful, and I think that is what differentiates us from the most of the other tools I've seen on the market.
Excellent. I'm conscious of time, and I think we've got through most of the questions. But if any more do arise, we'll endeavour to get back to those after the call. I appreciate your time, Matt. What I might quickly do is just summarize really like that joint value proposition, the things that you've talked about and our partnership with Snowflake so far. One of the things that I'm particularly conscious of it, the partnership has really helped us unify our data proposition, and it's given us that edge to scale quickly and respond to some of our growing client needs. Um, we know alpha exists in that intersection of data sets by bringing Third Bridge's library, our transcript expert transcript library, directly into the Snowflake data cloud. We eliminate that friction that we've seen some clients experience when it comes to data engineering. So we know that even in simple terms, we can do private shares. We just take that, they don't need complex infrastructure, an S3 bucket or Google Cloud connector. The table's there ready for them to query, search, and retrieve insights. Um, 2 minutes to go. I think this is the point that I'll just say if anyone's got questions or wants to reach out to Matt afterwards, please use the email address that's on screen. So hello@thirdbridge.com. Um, I just want to say thank you again, Matt. Really appreciate having you on the call. I've seen you talk at events in the past, so it's a real honor to get to question you directly. And also thank you to the audience. Thank you for all joining and listening in to our session today.
Thank you for having me. It has been a pure pleasure.
Thank you.